You and Cove arrived at Baxter's office on the dot of the allotted time. Emotions were still high from the preparations the previous day. After having settled down as the process had gone on, Cove's nerves had shot back to their initial appointment levels. Cove, no! Greetings were exchanged, and Baxter didn't leave a space open for Cove to get lost in. Your planner went right to the point.
What shall we be doing today?
Let's see. Caterer, cake, clothes, or dancing. I mean, clothes would be good because they need to be potentially altered. Ordering the cake is also good, also picking up the food. Again, dance sessions are kind of at the bottom of the list. But, I mean, Cove did just have like a very stressful day yesterday with the venue picking. He might like something food related though. You know what? I am going to do a random number generator. Take it out of my hands. Let's see. Random number generator. Pick it between 1 and 4, please. Alright, Google, I see your Team Baxter over here, you rude. Apparently today we're dancing. I feel like Google would like me to begin the dance sessions.
Exciting.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you want to get started on that?
Baxter gestured down to the other door in the space, rolling his wrist to point with his whole hand in an extravagant gesture. I'm gonna need you to tone that down, just a smidge, honey.
There's a room here in the building you can use for dance lessons. I'll need to schedule it, of course. We'd need to be certain there wouldn't be any conflicts. If you could wait a moment, please.
He pulled out his phone and swiped his finger a few times. His brow furrowed as he checked some sort of calendar. He tapped something with a flourish and looked up with a grin. Cove watched with open antsiness.
Cove and I can attend lessons in the afternoon. Then Molly, we can have the evening. I believe I can pencil us in as early as tomorrow for the first sessions. Happily, there is enough vacancy in the event room for individual sessions. One-on-one lessons are ideal for this. Every person is at their own level and will need guidance with different aspects. I can get everything arranged today if that works for you.
Cove nodded seriously. There was no hesitation coming from his corner, despite his jitteriness.
Let's do it.
You shot Cove and Baxter a please? Thumbs up. Yeah, that's good. Baxter placed the phone down to clasp his hands together. His enthusiasm was hard to miss.
Excellent.
I'll make it happen.
And he did. Baxter made the necessary arrangements right afterwards. He asked for your input occasionally and finalized the times. He planned each detail out exactly. Any specific idea that Cove or you had was jotted down and added to the considerations.
What kind of music are you thinking of? Would you rather go with something fast or something slow? It doesn't have to be ballroom staples. I'm more varied than that. A recent wedding I helped with went with classical music for the first half, and then early 2010s dance music for the last half. There is no wrong answer to this.
Cove shrugged and left space for you to answer. He knows that I'm the one with the music, so. Classic. Songs to dance to. Theatrical music. Pop music. Traditional wedding music. What counts as traditional wedding music? Alt music. Rock music. Country songs. Jazz songs. Throwbacks when we were growing up. Heck yeah. Some video game soundtracks. That is one thing I'm sad I didn't do. Some video game soundtracks. I don't know how many of those are, like, good for dancing, though, now that I stop to think about it. There's a few. Okay. I'm gonna see how many it lets me pick, but just in case it only lets me pick one, I gotta have my throwbacks from when we were growing up. There were a lot of nostalgic songs that were already coming to your mind. Baxter nodded approvingly. Cove was even more supportive of your recommendation.
Cool. I think I can guess some of the songs you're hoping for.
Absolutely.
And speaking of, let's chat about particular tracks.
After continuing to discuss music selections for a while, your office time with Baxter finished and it was time to leave for the day. Okay, so I only got to pick the one, so I'm glad I went with that one. Goodbyes were said, knowing that the separation wouldn't last long. Tomorrow wasn't far. The hours passed by quickly. It felt like a blink by the time the session rolled around. A bit after lunch, you drove Cove over to his first solo dance lesson with Baxter. He was definitely nervous on the drive there. You're gonna be great, honey. Despite his usual anxiousness, he insisted that he wanted to do the lesson on his own. He would show you his moves after he practiced. Fair. You wished Cove luck and dropped him off, hoping he had a good time. You drove off as soon as he disappeared into the building. The plan was to run errands until it was time to pick him back up. You had heard about a new store that had opened recently. It was close enough that you decided to check it out and see if they had anything worth getting. Unfortunately, the store didn't have a good selection compared to other options, but you stalled in the snack section. You debated buying something in order to not leave empty-handed. Chips, chocolate, sugary, fruit, healthy fruit, cheese and jerky, or don't buy anything. Hit me up with that chocolate bar. You plucked a bar off the shelf and bought it. Another store that you knew would have what you needed was minutes away. A short drive later and you were on your way to finishing your errands. It was nice to keep busy while waiting for Cove. When the time came, you drove the car up to the front of the building, stopping where Cove stood on the sidewalk. Cove greeted you with a smile and hopped into the car. He closed the door behind him and buckled his seatbelt with a click. How'd it go? Cove shifted in his seat while rubbing the back of his neck.
It was awkward, as you probably guessed, but not that bad.
He brightened as he thought back. You listened to the vivacity in his voice even as you focused on driving through the parking lot.
Baxter is kind of a good guy. Not a bad teacher.
You pulled out from in front of the building and started making your way through the first intersection. How soon after this lesson do I have to drive back from my lesson, out of curiosity? That's great! While kind of a good guy wouldn't usually be considered high praise, from Cove to Baxter, it wasn't too shabby. Yeah, I don't want to pry into like what they talked about. Just like, you know what? If you had a good time, that's all I need to hear. Baxter really must have done his best to put Cove at ease.
Yeah, I'm feeling even better about all this stuff going forward.
I'm glad. You finally pulled into a parking space and parked the car. You couldn't linger in the car too long, given your own lesson. Wait, where did I drive from? Did I pick you up, drive around the parking lot, and then park again? Molly, what are you doing? It was time to go. You looked at the grocery bag in the back seat with the snack you had bought. Yeah, I was really hoping I could offer some to Cove. If you're hungry, feel free to snack. He probably needed some fuel after dancing for so long. He pointed over at the food, and Cove's eyes widened at the sight.
That's gonna be good.
I'll see you later.
Bye! I love you!
I love you too. Cove leaned over and gave you a quick kiss. You beamed back at him. Dow. You left Cove with the car and walked with a bounce in your step to meet up with your wedding planner turned dance instructor. Oh boy, the bounce in the step. The doors of the office building let you in after a firm yank. The air was cooler than what was outside. You followed Baxter's directions from yesterday to navigate the wide halls. A left past the fire extinguisher, and then a right at the first set of doors. You found a set of thick glass doors. You peered into a large event room. It had to be the space. Ah, okay. You entered the space and noticed the towers of chairs on the sides of the room. It was easy to imagine the room filled with a crowd, but for now it had all been cleared for your private class. You walked across the empty tile floor to the counter at the back where Baxter was. He raised his head and waved you over, setting aside some notes he had been reading. With a paper and an elegant fountain pen left on the counter, he strode forward and met you in the middle of the large room.
Hello.
Welcome, Molly. I'm glad you could make it.
Hey! You waved at him and smiled warmly.
I hope you've been well.
I'm fantastic. Okay, I'm ready to boogie. Yeah, I'm ready to boogie. You pantomimed a few dance moves enthusiastically. Baxter chuckled.
You've come to the right place.
Baxter pulled a remote from his jacket pocket and clicked a button. A speaker system you hadn't noticed before crackled to life. Familiar music filled the room. He must have been busy to already have the songs that you had talked about yesterday ready. He tucked the remote back into his pocket, and then Baxter turned his attention on you. He offered you his hand.
Well,
I'll lead, at least at first. We can switch later if you prefer.
His gesture felt grandly formal. He'd had enough performance practice to really feel as if he'd stepped out of a fairy tale ball. Stop, game. Stop. You took his hand, ready to get started. His fingers linked around yours, and he put his other arm across your back. You relaxed into the proper form for the dance, muscle memory taking over. Baxter did not attempt to direct you, just remaining present as a reliable partner. You followed the music, timing your steps to the rhythm until you found yourself relaxing into it. Practicing like this was helping to smooth out any creases your flow might have had before. Baxter suddenly smirked, the twitch of his lips getting your attention immediately. Yes?
you know.
I recall that it wasn't just dance lessons I was available for, wasn't it? I also offered to give you rides whenever you needed them, didn't I? Hopefully I haven't let you down with that.
It took a moment before you understood what he was talking about. You laughed clear and bright. I think I'll be alright. We have our own cars now. You were impressed he still remembered, but then again, you also remembered it. It had been a particularly memorable summer all those years ago. Being firmly in the flow, the discussion died down. The only exchange was the music and the sound of your shoes on the sleek floor in time with each other's. Yeah, what happened to you after that summer? I'm so curious. I mean, he obviously keeps up dance enough that he's being, like, a reliable partner. Alright. I'll bite. What happened to you after that summer? He's like, oh god!
She went for the jugular!
He faltered in his step, throwing the dance to a halt. He recovered quickly, his toes going back to precisely formed motions. But his face still showed the strain of the upset. It's kind of strange how completely you disappeared after your vacation. Did something happen? He took a deep breath. Tremors went through his shoulders from the effort of keeping his perfect poise.
I apologize for vanishing so thoroughly and not even attempting to keep in touch. It was unkind.
His lips twitched. It was closer to a grimace than anything resembling a smile, even though you thought that's what he was attempting.
I didn't think it mattered at the time, to end it completely once I left Sunset Bird behind. At least, that's what I told myself. Or rather, what I hoped would be true. I wished hard that when you, and everyone there, didn't see me anymore, that you'd never think of me again. You'd go on with your lives happily, and I wouldn't factor into it.
He paused again. How did music sound so much like cold silence?
That doesn't make much sense to you, I imagine.
No, I mean, that is kind of what I pegged you for when I first met you. Why you were in Sunset Bird in the first place is just like, you kind of move around, you don't like to get close to people, you just like disappear, so. Baxter offered a one-shoulder shrug for your supposed trouble. What was the last thing he said? Hold on, I gotta... Doesn't make much sense to you. Eh? He took another deep breath and determination sparked in his eyes.
It's the eternal story of my life. I want to be liked, but I can't be important. A friend for a season, a planner at a wedding. That's me. I'm not like him. Cove is a fiancé. He stays. He tries. Clingy, I think your friends and family like to joke. I never thought so. He didn't even care for me, but was willing to dance together to do a better job for his wedding.
Oof, I mean, that is all true.
In life, there are just some ones, and then there's the one. You found your one, and I'm genuinely thrilled you did, and that he found his. All I want is to assist with that happiness and to not get in the way of it. But neither of us are here for our old relationship dynamic. That's ancient history. We don't need to get mired in the past when the future is so bright.
Baxter's tone was pointed with finality. That was as much as he would say. Alright, you know what? Fair enough, my dude, but, just because you're not the one in everyone's lives doesn't mean you can be, more than someone. You can be a friend, You can have some measure of importance. The pace of the dance sped up, going back to what it had been before. You nearly stepped on his foot at the sudden change. Since he clearly was not going to discuss it anymore, you didn't attempt to pry for more details. This had gotten into incredibly personal territory. I'm actually surprised he gave me as much as that, so, you know what? Thanks. Thanks. Oh man, this is what I said! Oh, I mean, I said both of these things. Ah, heck it, I'm gonna say what I said. You deserve to be important. He dropped his gaze at your words, uncomfortable with your sincerity. You decided not to push anymore, and the tension slowly drained out of him. Baxter schooled his face, and for all the world appeared like the conversation had never affected him. Alright. I'm glad we went and had, that serious conversation first, because now we can move on to, So, do you still dance often?
No.
I don't compete anymore, if that's what you mean. I haven't even kept up with it as a hobby lately.
Okay. So you used to compete. Interesting.
I do it for weddings, if the couple would like me to assist.
He gazed into the distance, somewhere else for a heartbeat. Then he came back to you and smiled.
I still love dance, clearly.
He wiggled his eyebrows and put emphasis on his movements. You had to admit that he appeared happy enough during the session. Yeah, very happy with that, last conversation we had.
There just isn't room for everything. I imagine that you've dealt with similar situations in your adult life.
I see.
Thanks.
Thanks for giving me an excuse to make time for a dance.
At least all those lessons paid off for your career. The feeling is mutual. You also love the excuse to dance. The session was a lot of fun. If only the world gave more excuses to dance, that would be a planet you'd love to live on. Agreed. You know what? I'm gonna leave the whole Cove Baxter thing alone. The bros can be bros over there. I don't know. I just feel like I'm prying on both sides. Just you know what? They want to share stuff with me, but that was their own lesson, so I'm just gonna leave it. The acoustics of the room were surprisingly good for dancing. The music was at a good volume, and despite the tile flooring, the tapping of your steps didn't echo distractingly off the walls. You tried to relax your shoulders and place more confidence in your movement. Left foot, left foot, turn. You observed the easy way Baxter seemed to glide across the floor. Following his lead was easy, but you concentrated on taking it further. You mimicked what he did, attempting to learn his gracefulness. He chimed in after he noticed what you were doing and made small suggestions as needed. You both continued to dance as the song cycled through and back. Thoughts played in your mind about the surrealness of reconnecting with Baxter again after all these years without contact. However, that was secondary to your goal of dancing well in your upcoming wedding to the love of your life. It wouldn't be too much longer until you would be doing this with your husband. Aww. Yeah, I'm good with him continuing to lead. I've never learned how to lead, so... He obliged easily. By the end of the session, night had fallen. You said goodbye to Baxter, and Cove came to pick you up in the car. You mirrored his actions from earlier in the day, climbing into the passenger seat and clicking in your seatbelt. He took the opportunity to copy you as well.
So, how'd it go?
The amused sparkle in his eye let you know that using your words was completely and utterly intentional. It was really nice. You enjoyed connecting with Baxter and couldn't wait to dance with Cove in the near future. Cove grinned widely, happy for you.
I'm glad this was a good idea. Also, did I thank you for buying me a snack earlier? It was good.
You're welcome. I hope there's some left. You craned your neck around to inspect the back seat. You saw an additional sack, and Cove laughed.
Don't worry, I didn't need everything. I bought some drinks to go with them. I thought they'd be nice for a post-dance pickup.
Cove better know how much you loved him, especially in moments like this. With the day's arrangements taken care of, Cove pulled out of the empty lot and started to drive away. Next time you were scheduled to come by, it would be for the usual kind of office visit. No dancing required. Okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way. You highly anticipated meeting back up with Baxter. You had a good feeling about where this wedding was going. Alright, cool. I think it was actually good for us to do that now, because maybe Cove will feel a little more at ease around Baxter after that session. We'll see. When you arrived for your session that day, you noticed Baxter's foot was tapping against the floor in a steady rhythm. It seemed the lessons from the day before were still on his mind. Heya!
Hi.
Good afternoon.
So nice to see you again. Now, we can keep going over the steps here and there in between other aspects of the planning, but our main focus should move beyond that. What shall we be doing today?
Alright. Food, or clothes? Let's do number generator again. That was fun. But we'll do 1 to 3 this time. Boop, 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 boop. Ooh, cake time! Let's go design a cake, Cove. Baxter nodded his head, confirming that he'd registered your choice. Beside you, Cove's excitement had bubbled over. He was bouncing in his seat, too eager to restrain himself.
Yeah.
Good idea, Molly. I'm definitely ready to plan treats.
His open enthusiasm tickled you, eliciting an adoring chuckle that slipped out. Across the table, Baxter joined you with a soft laugh of his own. Meanwhile, Cove seemed oblivious to your amusement. You figured he was too lost in imagining delicious cakes to notice what was happening around him. What you needed now was for someone to turn those dreams into reality. The agency had worked with suppliers of all kinds, so Baxter had a list of bakeries that they recommended for weddings. You and Cove had a few personal favorites, too. Together, you reviewed the websites for all potential bakeries. Baxter had a wealth of handy tips of what to keep in mind when it came specifically to commissioning wedding cakes for you to take into consideration. The three of you whittled away the options until you finally settled on the one you wanted. With that decided, Baxter contacted them to arrange a meeting so you could select the flavors and discuss design ideas before working out practicalities. He easily secured a time that worked perfectly for both you and Cove. That brought you to the end of the meeting. The decision of which bakery to choose, the scheduling, briefing them on your basic requirements, had taken up all the remaining time you had with Baxter for today. The three of you rose from your seats one after the other.
Goodbye for today.
It's been great to see you. Yeah, I can't believe next time we see you we'll have our wedding cake picked out.
Right, if everything goes to plan.
Of course. I'm sure you'll have a great time together. I look forward to hearing what you decide on. Though I won't be there in person, you can always text me if you want advice during the process.
I'm not sure I trust your taste. Oh, I'm pretty sure Cove's going to be on top of this. Cove puffed his chest out proudly.
Thank you, Molly.
He's got this down, don't worry. He waved goodbye as you and Cove left the office for the day. Ooh. What a lovely looking bakery. The light tinkling of a bell over the door announced your arrival as you and Cove stepped inside, where you were immediately welcomed by a pleasant waft of sweet scents. The bakery was a delight for the senses even before you'd taken a single bite. Decked out in a pretty shade of pink, it was impossible to miss. Cove closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. There was a soft air of cakes and pastries baking in the oven, tinged with warm spices like cinnamon and nutmeg. The display case was full of the daily selection of mouth-watering delicacies, neatly lined up and ready to be taken away. The selection ranged from intricate specialty cakes to more rustic, homey brownies and cupcakes. Usually, those kinds of treats would be everything you needed, but today was a special visit. You were entirely focused on the even better desserts waiting for you on the horizon. You could tell Cove shared your feelings. He waited beside you with every outward appearance of patience, but you could tell his anticipation by the way he kept a close watch on the kitchen door as you waited for an employee to come greet you. This uncharacteristic restraint was a stark contrast to any other time he'd visited a bakery, where he'd have rushed over to the display case and immediately began picking out cakes to take home. As he shifted from one foot to the other, you knew that he was fighting to hold back those usual urges. Luckily, his self-control wasn't tested for long. Soon the door to the kitchen swung open and a friendly-looking face emerged. Spotting you and Cove, the person smiled and began heading over. As they approached, you saw that the name on their tag said Xavier, with a little purple button pinned to one strap of their apron with the words they/them printed in black letters. Xavier walked right up to you and gave you a welcome so warm you could have sworn it had come fresh from the oven.
Hello. Thanks for coming by, Zake. Is there anything I can get for you?
Zake.
Hi.
Cove paused, pointing first at himself and then at you as he spoke.
We're Cove and Molly. We've got an appointment here.
His voice, which had started out measured and even, became hushed as the thrill of what you were here to do started to get to Cove. When he resumed speaking, it broke further still, devolving into a rushed whisper that Xavier needed to lean in to catch.
It's to plan our wedding cake. We're getting married!
Thank you for making time for us. Xavier's eyes lit up at the introduction.
Of course. Welcome, Molly and Cove, our bride and groom.
Cove preened ever so slightly at those last words, his chin jutting out with confidence.
I'm Xavier, the head cake artist here. We're so happy to be working with you for such an important event. You can take some seats right there in front and we can start talking options.
They gestured to a nearby table. You and Cove obliged, taking your seats. As you sat down, your stomach somersaulted. You were really here to pick out a wedding cake. The cake that would be served at your wedding. It hadn't quite sunk in before, but being invited to begin had made it feel more official. But knowing that you weren't alone and feeling that way comforted you, and you grinned at the love of your life. Cove beamed back at you. The baker had taken a detour over to the back shelf where they picked up a binder before coming to stand before you at the table.
I went over the info our baking assistant took when the appointment was arranged, so we can dive right into things. So let's get to it, starting with the size of the cake. How big do you want to go? We can go as big as 5 tiers high.
Maybe.
2 or 3 maybe?
Yep, I'm glad we're in agreement, Cove. Me and my husband had 3 at ours, so cool, very cool. Cove tilted his head to the side as he looked to you for input. I was told, though, in a comment, I should pick the most layers for a funny interaction, so I'm going to do that first, and then we're going to come back to that and pick the 3. And funnily enough, me and my husband didn't actually go to a bakery to order a wedding cake. A friend of ours was getting into baking at the time, and she was doing beautifully decorated cakes, so she actually made our wedding cake. And she did an awesome job with it. If they can do 5, then let's do 5. Cove's mouth fell open as he stared at you. The corners of his mouth began to curve upwards as he gradually recovered from the shock.
Seriously?
You nodded, your expression unchanged. Of course. Cove retrieved his jaw and put on his best lopsided smile.
Okay, we'll get a 5-tier cake.
Seeing as you'd reached a conclusion, Xavier noted it down in the binder.
A 5-tier cake it is.
They glanced up from the binder, smiling.
That will give us a lot to work with.
Okay. Poor Cove was like, are you sure? Okay. 3 would be wonderful, though.
Cool.
Seeing as you'd reached a conclusion, Xavier noted it down in the binder.
A 3-tier cake it is.
They glance up from the binder, smiling.
That will give us a lot to work with. In terms of decorating, is there any kind of direction you'd want us to aim for in the overall style?
Cove pursed his lips, stumped by the question. Artistic vision had never been his strong suit. Though you'd reviewed ideas for decorations and color schemes together, asking Cove to distill those visions and themes into words was doomed to failure. You took it from there and said, traditional, modern, elegant, unusual, trendy, rustic, floral, beachy, simplistic. Whatever you think is best is good with us. I don't even know what I would call mine. It was... Okay, so mine was 3 layers. It was fondant icing, purple. The entire cake was purple. It had a wide ribbon tied around each layer. That was also in like a darker purple. And then on the cake was 2 or 3 yellow lilies. So would that be considered floral or simplistic? I'm also kind of tempted to do beachy because we haven't actually done anything beachy yet for our wedding. I wish I could get a look at what these look like. I'm gonna make a save. Bloop, bloop. Okay. If I said beachy, what does it do? Cope sighed, relieved, and expressed his approval.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. We can work with that for sure.
Okay, let's go back.
Right.
If I did floral, it's gonna be the same.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So what do I want to do then? You know what? This is gonna be another random number generator thing. I can't pick. It's either gonna be floral, beachy, or simplistic. Boop, boop, boop. Alright, beachy it is. You know what? Let's... Although if I do purple, then the purple beachy thing is gonna look weird. You know what? Let's do floral. I know I just like started doing the random number generator and then I'm like, nah, you know what? I'm just gonna do this.
Right.
Any color ranges in mind?
Again, Ko fell silent, like a kid hoping not to be called on in the classroom. Even though it was just the 3 of you and he had no chance of hiding, you could swear that he was shrinking lower in his seat as if hoping to go unnoticed. As entertaining as that was, you decided to spare Cove before he slipped under the table. You spoke up and said, I guess it's not that? This is tough. Hold on. I cannot remember what pastel looks like for the life of me, so I'm looking that up. This is the Google search session. Okay. Pastel, maybe? What is muted? What's considered muted tones? Hold on. Google, what do you think about muted tones? Okay, kind of browns, greens, and grays, and maybe some blues by the looks of things. Not a lot of purple in the muted tones. I assume dark shades is going to be grays and blacks? Maybe some browns? Literally some dark shades, as in sunglasses. Perfect. Okay, yeah, that's very dark. Yeah, not dark shades. Pastel's looking the most promising, guys. What about bright tones? Bright tones. Boop. Oh, that's very bright. Oh, good lord. Yeah, let's do pastel, I guess, she says.
Got it. And what's one color you really want me to keep on the top of my mind?
Ah, perfect. You're awesome. Purple, please.
Nice, I'm getting you.
Xavier looked up from the binder.
Right, so we're going for a 3-tier purple cake that's floral.
You could picture the cake clearly now. It was just what you'd wanted. Yeah, that's right. Cove, who was staring at you like you'd saved him from a life or death situation rather than answering a couple of simple questions in a pleasant bakery, gave you a thumbs up. Xavier watched you both with a smile.
This cake is really shaping up. Time for the fun part. I'll be right back.
They got up and made their way into the kitchen.
The fun part?
We get to taste some stuff now, Cove. Cove echoed the words, puzzled but intrigued. He peered after Xavier, trying to catch a glimpse of the magic happening behind the closed doors. Craning his neck didn't grant Cove X-ray vision, but that was just fine, as you weren't kept in suspense for long. Xavier quickly returned with a large, covered serving tray. Cove gasped, his fingers curling with anticipation. Oh yeah.
Careful, coming through.
They lowered the heavy platter onto the table, where it clattered against the hard surface as it settled. Ooh. Xavier lifted the cover to reveal several plates of little cake slices with mounds of different frosting and filling flavors. Oh boy. The beautiful array of colors and breadth of the selection made for a wonderfully presented array of treats. Cove gaped, wowed by the revelation.
Oh, we get to try samples?
Xavier giggled at Cove's reaction. Given just how much enthusiasm Cove had, you bet there weren't many previous grooms whose response could compare.
You do.
They pointed at the tray and began talking you through the selection, starting with the neat little slices of cake.
So we've got a few cake flavors for you today. Vanilla, chocolate, red velvet, citrus, and such.
They moved over to the frosting and fillings.
There's vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, maple, and mocha buttercream. Over here we've got chocolatey and fruity fillings, though the inside can simply contain more frosting if you'd prefer.
Having talked you through the samples, they straightened up.
These are some of our most popular options, but not everything. You can see all our options on the order forms.
As they talked, they took out 2 copies of the order sheet and presented you with one each. All of the possibilities for each element of the cake were laid out before you.
That's everything. You're welcome to eat whatever parts look appealing, or you can have everything on the platter if you've got the stomach for it.
Cove's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Knowing Cove, you suspected that he intended to take Xavier up on the offer to sample everything. He picked up the fork provided and began systematically working through the platter. He took scoops out of the cake, frosting, and filling options in turn, moving from left to right and from top to bottom. He chuckled softly, amused that your hunch had been correct. Though Cove was evidently intent on eating a bit of everything, you noticed that he was careful to leave at least half of each sample in case you wanted it too. Thank you. Yeah, I probably would just try the ones that appeal the most to me. There were certain flavors you knew you liked. You really wanted to focus on those ones before making your choice. Picking up a fork, you joined Cove in sampling the cakes, frosting, and fillings on offer. You murmured your delight to each other as you discovered new combinations and enjoyed the sheer variety laid out before you. Cove's eyes shone as he looked at you, glad to be sharing the experience. You were so enraptured that you nearly forgot that you weren't alone with Cove, but this too was by design. The baker stood by approvingly, careful not to do anything that might interrupt your enjoyment. Oh no. We haven't done this in a while. Cove spotted the poised fork in front of him, laden with cake. You knew your intentions had been understood as a blush spread over his cheeks. Even now, it was criminally easy to make him embarrassed. Still, he leaned in and opened his mouth to accept the offering. You brought the fork to his lips and he happily ate the treat.
Thanks, Molly.
He held up his own fork, where the bite he'd been about to take was waiting.
For you.
Aww. Cove's eyes glittered, happy to reciprocate. You bit down around his fork. The cake seemed sweeter when it was being fed to you like this. Mm-hmm. Cuties. Cove shimmied happily in his seat. The different varieties had gone down very well with him.
They're all so good.
He cracked a grin.
Hey, could we get a tier for every flavor?
Mm-hmm. Xavier laughed.
Unfortunately, we can't. At least not in a single cake, and I'm guessing you don't want several different cakes for your wedding. Yeah, we should just go with the one.
Ooh, I like this. It's okay, Cove. We can always get cakes for our anniversaries in the future.
He's like, oh, anniversaries.
It would be nice to taste the experience over again, year after year, especially if you could continue to get cakes from the same bakery that had provided your wedding cake. That'd be so sweet. The suggestion made him swoon for you. The promise of food and staying together was a perfect hit. Now that you'd had a taste of the bakery's cakes, and Cove had had several, it was time to figure out the details.
We can do the cake all in one flavor, top to bottom, or let you choose 2 sets of different flavors. What works for you?
That's actually great, because me and my husband also did 2 sets of flavors. The bottom layer of the cake was vanilla for my husband, and the top 2 smaller layers were chocolate for me. And they were so good! Having different flavors for the tiers sounds fun.
Yeah, let's do that.
Cove lifted himself up off the chair briefly to switch his position. He moved over from leaning forwards towards the tray and shifted to be situated on the side of the chair facing you.
So?
So?
What's your thoughts? You don't need to stick to it forever, but were you thinking something kind of plain, chocolatey, fruity, or what?
You picked up the copy of the form to review the options again. After studying it carefully, you said... Yeah, I mean, I was the one that picked the chocolate, so I'm gonna go chocolatey.
Okay.
He rested his chin in his hand as he stared thoughtfully into the distance. A smile drifted across his face as he pictured the possibilities for your cake.
What about something like a marbled cake with milk chocolate ganache on the inside and peanut butter buttercream on the outside?
Okay. So like a marbled cake with milk chocolate ganache and peanut butter buttercream. I mean, this sounds exactly like what my husband would love, with some peanut butter on the outside. That does sound good. Okay, we can do that for one of the... Okay, for one of the sets. Let me save, because I'm curious what some of these... What are these other options? That's really nice. Can we tweak a part of it? I'd like a different frosting flavor. Cove sat up straight, amazed that his idea had been a starting point for collaboration with you.
Yeah, I'd love you to add your own thing.
For the frosting, you like the idea of... Whoa, there's so many! Holy mackerel. Chocolate with white chocolate, though? Cove leaned back in his seat, watching you curiously as he waited to hear what you were thinking. You glanced over the form again and got started on the next tier. Thinking about the type of cake you wanted, you decided to suggest... what about a white vanilla cake? For the frosting, you like the idea of... Okay, am I picking everything up? Because then I would kind of want Cove to have the bottom layer if he wants to do the whole thing. Maybe? Hold on. Hold on, I need to check something real quick. I'm curious what he would say if we had picked vanilla. Just out of curiosity. I gotta try some things.
Okay. It could be a white cake with white buttercream, but instead of more buttercream inside, maybe there's a vanilla custard?
That sounds really good, honestly. I'll admit, I just don't really like peanut butter. I'm not a peanut butter person. So I'm like, peanut butter frosting, I'm like, eh. Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Let's go with that for one of the sets. Cove straightened up at your words of approval, amazed that his idea had been helpful. The baker jotted it down.
I'm good with that. How about the rest?
Okay, so then, what if I did, like, my chocolate cake with some white chocolate frosting and just, like, I could do more of the buttercream in the same flavor, or I could do a mousse. Ooh, mousse. Be such a rich cake. Ugh. Hit me up with that mousse. Oh, man, I got like all the. Yeah, give me like 3 different shades of chocolate for this cake. Can you tell what my favorite flavor is? I would like chocolate dipped in chocolate, surrounded by chocolate, please. Cove had been nodding along with your suggestions. Recap the idea.
So you're thinking of a chocolate cake with white chocolate frosting and dark chocolate flavored mousse on the inside.
That's right.
Sounds good.
It sounds really good to me.
Then your mouth-watering cake flavors were all set. Hooray! You were sure it was going to be a hit at the wedding.
The inside of the cake is great. All that's left now is the cover. How should we wrap your baby up? Do you like fondant? Or maybe ganache?
Cove shrugged. He's like, eh. You said, hit me up with that fondant. Buttercream covered in fondant.
Got it. Almost done.
They scribbled that down in the binder.
Finally, what elements would you like me to include in the design and presentation of the cake?
This is perfect. This is exactly what I had. This is everything I ever needed. Give me them fresh flowers and ribbons around the tiers. I think that's everything. Awesome.
Nice and straightforward. I like it. Awesome, we've got ourselves a cake plan.
The baker's words made it official. You'd picked your wedding cake. You couldn't help being especially thrilled about that. The wedding cake was such a focal part of the party. It would be featured in photographs and shared among your family and friends. The joy of the day distilled into a beautiful confection. Just thinking about it left you breathless. You glanced at Cove out of the corner of your eye, wondering if he was feeling as excited as you were. He was leaning forward in his seat, a rapt expression on his face. As Xavier continued speaking, you pulled yourself back to the present.
I'll take all the info you've given us today and use it to think up the finished design. I'll keep you in the loop on how it's going. Though, before you go, are you wanting any other dessert on the side? Maybe cupcakes or cookies? Or we could do something else if there's anything specific you have in mind.
Wedding pretzels. Oh, man, we could do either ice cream or fudge, because we did both of those things when we were going out. How about ice cream, though? Can you do ice cream?
Yeah! Cake and ice cream, a perfect combination! We don't make ice cream in-house, but we do have connections with a business that could provide that for us. That's fine with me.
You nodded, pleased that the idea could be put into practice.
Then ice cream it is.
The three of you talked over the details of your additional dessert. Xavier skillfully guided you through it all to determine everything from your preferences for flavor and texture to the quantity you needed. Eventually, it was all set up. Xavier reviewed their notes in the binder.
So, you're getting a 3-tier cake with a floral kind of feel that's multi-flavored. And you're also getting some ice cream along with it.
Yeah, so for my wedding, it was kind of like a potluck deal. So everybody brought something to the reception, which was really nice. They brought like savory stuff and desserts and everything. So there was so much food. I didn't have to worry about like having extra desserts because there was just so much food. Your heart fluttered as you imagined the cake once again, you and Cove standing over it and ready to take the first cut. The side dessert beautifully complemented the cake, completing the picture perfectly. Yeah, those are our desserts. Cove bounced in his chair again, his hands clasped against the edge of the table. His excitement was as palpable as your own.
This is gonna be so good!
Xavier grinned, pleased to see the two of you so happy.
Thanks again for coming to us for your wedding. We'll make the desserts of your dreams.
You worked through the outstanding specifics of your order with Xavier, who was determined to get everything right for your big day, and had an answer ready for everything you could throw at them. Once the final arrangements had been confirmed, you left the bakery feeling confident that your wedding cake was going to be just wonderful. Cove, naturally, shared your optimism completely.